If you want to grow organically, you have to have a successful employee recruitment strategy. One key attribute of the 7 companies that I've sold has been that we doubled revenue year over year for the first 5 years in those companies. In order to build out these employee teams, you have to have key strategies. So today I'm going to give you the 5 key strategies that I've used to build out phenomenal employee teams. Stick with me.
Welcome to the Launch Capsule with your host, James DuBos. Buckle up because your launch capsule begins now.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Welcome to this episode of the Launch Capsule, where today we're going to be going over the 5 strategies that I've used to build out phenomenal employee teams. So let's get started. So the first thing that I tell all of my entrepreneurs is that you have to have role clarity. So before you ever take a job position and post it on a job board, you have to be really clear about what you're looking for. So let's break this down into some bite-sized chunks to really make you think about how you're building out your roles. The first thing I tell you is do internal job analysis. Have some conversations with your team members and the stakeholders inside of your company to identify and make clear the key responsibilities and challenges of the role. The next thing is defining some clear success metrics, 30, 60, 90-day must-have versus nice-to-have. What are going to be the KPIs that you're going to use to evaluate performance for this individual? The other thing I would tell you is the skills prioritization. Going back to the must-have and nice-to-have, what are the qualifications that you say I have to have? I cannot have a person in this position if they do not have these skills versus it would be nice if they had these capabilities. The next would be defining a future growth path. So when you bring an individual into a position, where do you see them able to go inside of your company as the organization continues to grow and change? That's going to be very important for any future candidate to understand, hey, here are the paths that I could take based on where the company is going. Obviously, you need to do salary banding, right? What is a salary band? It's a range from high end to low end. Where is your band for this particular position? I always tell people, I always compensated my employees based upon their role, their functional role in the organization, not on their duration, not on their, I'll say, tenure in the company. It was always based upon the role that they were filling inside of the company. So there is a salary band that position sits with them. And then lastly, I would tell you, look for cross-functional input inside of the company. This means you're talking to people outside of the direct team members that the position would sit within, but the teams that this position affects. That way you're getting their input as well. And so overall, those individual steps, those 6 characteristics will help you create a very clear, defined role for the position that you're trying to fill. The next strategy that I want to talk about is what I'm going to term strategic sourcing of positions. Another way to express this is a good friend of mine says you got to build your bench. Well, the first characteristic or the first method that I use inside of this sourcing strategy is a referral program. Just like you look for word of mouth sales, you want word of mouth referrals from customers, you look for word of mouth referrals from employees. And the way you do that is by creating an incentive program for employees who refer successful candidates inside of the organization. So no different than you would pay a recruiter, an outside recruiter, to help you recruit future employees, you're going to do the same thing for internal employees. This gives them a monetary incentive to bring you the best candidate. They want to bring you a candidate that's not going to be successful because it's going to shine a poor light on them. So I encourage you to really build out a referral program if you don't have one. The other aspect of this is it's an indicator of where is your culture? Do you have a strong culture? Is it an environment that employees are willing to refer their friends and colleagues to? It gives you another way to measure your culture. The next component I would tell you is within the organization is to look at talent communities for the positions, whether that's an accounting group, a sales group, whatever the functional role is inside the company. You need to define talent communities that you could draw potential candidates from. And then you figure out, how do I build an ongoing relationship with those talent communities inside of the greater community that you serve? The next area is diversity sourcing, looking at alternative, I'll say, communities of potential candidates. I myself am a non-college graduate. So that would be an example of an alternative, looking to trade schools or junior colleges, places where there's non-degreed personnel, but there are pools of talented resources that you could draw into the organization and help you fill open positions. I'm going to use an expression, CRM. Instead of customer relationship management, you need a candidate relationship manager. You need a specific application to help you manage passive candidates as you're beginning to churn for open positions. One of the things that we talk about with our entrepreneurs is when you're doing your strategic planning and you've planned out growth, year over year growth in particular areas for your business, you need to be planning for your candidate pools. What positions are you going to need to be able to execute against the growth you're planning for in the following 12 months, and begin sourcing those potential candidates, beginning the activities early enough to where you have availability of positions and people to fill those open roles. Don't wait till you've already captured the business, because by then you don't have the ability to execute on the growth and you're going to have a problem. So you need this candidate relationship management process inside of the company to help you be ready to pull the trigger and hire a qualified candidate when you're ready. And lastly, don't underestimate what I refer to as alumni networks inside of the employee community. It's not uncommon to have employees leave to go take a position for a variety of reasons, but they're leaving your organization with a positive experience, and they're willing to speak well of you and continue to refer people to you. Over my 35 years, I've employed thousands of people, and it's one of the things that I truly enjoy is the ability for people to come back and refer and say, "Hey, if you're looking for this type of a role or an opportunity, go see Jim because he's going to give you that opportunity you're looking for." And so building the alumni network can be a very powerful tool in the overall recruiting strategy of the business. So this strategic sourcing, really be thinking about referral programs, talent communities, candidate relationship management, diversity sourcing, and the alumni networks associated with this particular strategy. Okay, strategy number 3 is turning our attention a little bit to when a candidate enters into the building or into this opportunity for the first time. What are the things that you do during the hiring process? The first is, I would encourage you to have behavioral interview questions, whether it's a STAR method, situation, task, action, result, that type of an evaluation to evaluate really past performance. So you're looking for behavioral oriented reactions and feedback. The next is a technical assessment. So based upon the functional role that you're hiring for, be willing to give them tests to see how they execute, to help you validate their ability to execute the role that you're trying to hire them for. Make sure you have standardized scoring so that you don't get this subjectivity across the results when you're looking at potential candidates. I like to have some form of initial video screening with a candidate before they ever come in person, just to give you a sense of their individual characteristics and personality. I like blind resume reviews inside of my organization where I'll take the candidate's name off of a resume or group of resumes and say, here are individuals that you're going to either be working with or helping me review potential candidates. I want you to score these and give me feedback without knowing whose resume they are. It's a great way to kind of remove any kind of bias that might exist initially when looking at resumes. And lastly, don't be scared to ask for case studies or some form of work samples just to give you a sense of what types of projects and items that they've worked on in their past. These are all good ways to have a structured assessment process of potential candidates as you're going through the journey of hiring. Okay, the fourth strategy is really evaluating the individual candidate and looking at their cultural alignment. So, some of the things that I'd like to do is do values based questions and develop some prompts that indicate alignment with the overall company mission and principles that you're operating under. The next is to do some form of maybe a team lunch or a social interview and just observe how a candidate interacts in a less formal setting with the potential team members. It gives you an idea of them as an individual. I also like giving positive and negative effects of the work environment because you want to see the reactions associated from the candidate. So not everything is going to be great. There are going to be challenges in any work environment. And so you want to be honest and transparent with the candidate to see their initial reactions and see if they're how they process those negative moments and will they fit within the overall culture. Obviously, I like to do reference checks. I think those are critical and understand the relationship of the reference with the potential candidate to be sure that it's a quality reference. The next is personality assessments. I think these are critical for the overall, let's call it diversity of thought. And so the way I've always used personality assessments is saying, this is my personality profile of the team that the individual candidate is going to come and work within. How does their personality fit with the others? And how are going to be some things that I'm going to need to do to prepare my team members to be able to interact with them in a really effective way? So using personality is a very important. I've used a couple of different tools in my life. I've used DISC, as a personality tool. I've also used the 16 personalities tool, which is a great tool for teams, and it gives you a more granular view into potential personality profiles for candidates. So I strongly encourage you to use personality in order to achieve this diversity of thought inside of your teams. And lastly, just think about the working style, some form of work style assessment to identify the preferences of communications from an individual candidate for feedback and for the overall work environment that they're going to be operating within. Because not everyone is verbal. Some people like written communications versus verbal communications and so forth. So really helping you do that. So these things again, so values-based question, a social interview, some job previews of positive and negative, encourage the candidate maybe to think about how do they fit inside of your company. Again, reference checks, diversity of thought, personality profiles, and then lastly, this working style assessment. This will help you fit the cultural alignment with this potential candidate. Okay, the last strategy here, number 5, is the offer itself and the onboarding experience for the individual candidate. So the total compensation presentation, you've got to clearly outline all the benefits. So it's not just salary, but it's healthcare, retirement, how you do paid time off, all those things. Try to personalize the offer in as much as possible because over the interview process, you've probably learned the things that are the most important to this candidate. So you want to highlight those wherever possible. I suggest a buddy system of some form, someone who's with them for the first 30 or 60 days, just to help them have an informal guidance into the company and give them someone to help us, from I'll say an unstructured support type system. I like the pre-boarding activity. So whether you're sending welcome materials, they have their paperwork completed. I like when a candidate walks into the office for the first time, we would have company paraphernalia that we would load them up, whether it was shirts or notepads, hats, things that made them feel like, hey, welcome to the team. And so I think that first day walk into their work environment is a very critical component of this onboarding process. I strongly encourage you to have a structured first week. Try to give them a detailed schedule with introductions and trainings to help them launch successfully. Then develop those 30, 60, 90-day work plans. They don't have to be as detailed as the first week plan, but obviously develop clear objectives and milestones that you want them to achieve. These will be critical to the first month's success rate within the individual candidate that you're hiring. I would schedule on the calendar check-ins, whether they be weekly, bi-weekly, whatever you feel like needs to be there. Make sure you have the frequent check-ins so that you feel like you have a pulse of the candidate who's just come into the organization. I also encourage, say, some cross-departmental orientation, because a new hire is going to affect more than just the department that they've been hired in. So make sure they get introduced to the right people. They know the leadership team. They understand how they affect those departments. I think that's critical for new employee awareness inside of a company. And then lastly, obviously, is technology setup. Just make sure that they know how to use all their equipment, their access is ready to go on the first day, and they have an initial onboarding related to the technology environment associated with the onboarding. Okay, so look, thanks for taking the time to listen to these 5 strategies to build out incredible employee teams. In my own journey with hiring teams of people, people want to come and be associated with winners. They want to be associated with people that care about the things that they care about. So by following these 5 strategies, this is going to give you the highest opportunity for success for filling these open positions that you're going to have as you grow your company. So again, thank you for spending the time with me, and have an awesome day.
That's a wrap for today's episode of The Launch Capsule. The Launch Capsule. With your host and mentor to success, James DuBos. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and share.